Hi again, Mark here from Talkingbass. Today I'm going to be giving you a quick exercise that should help with developing your legato technique. So we're talking hammer-ons and pull-offs. So I'm assuming at least a little knowledge of hammer-ons and pull-offs. So just as an example, if I was to fret the A here at the 7th fret of the D string, pluck that note, and then just press down with another one of the fingers. So I'm going to press down at the B at the 9th fret, so that's with the 3rd finger. That's a hammer-on. So I picked the first note, but then I played a hammer-on for the second note. So it's just pressing down the note without picking. So that's a hammer-on. And then for a pull-off, if I was to play the reverse of that, so I'm going to hold down both the 7th and the 9th fret there, so the A and the B. So I've got both of those fingers held down, the 1st and the 3rd finger. I pick the note, which is there, that B at the 9th fret, and then I pull off, so I just let the finger slip off the side of the string, just as if we were picking the notes, you know, with this hand, but we're kind of picking it with this hand. So just let it slip off the side of the string while keeping that 7th fret held down. We get a pull off back down to the A. So B, A, 9th fret, 7th fret, okay? So that's a pull off. So hammer on, we press down, and then for the pull off, we just let that finger slip off. Hammer-ons and pull-offs are great for developing the fretting hand, so the strength and dexterity increases, and you also tend to build up some crazy hard calluses from all the extra rubbing on the string there. But it can be easy to take some shortcuts with the technique and develop a bit of a lazy pull-off, especially with some of the weaker fingers like the 4th finger or pinky. So today we're going to get laser focused on each finger in turn. So, for our first exercise, we're just going to fret that A, the 7th fret of the D string again, and then we're going to play a hammer-on and a pull-off on each finger in turn. So that's going to sound like this. So, for that exercise, we're just going to play that A at the 7th fret of the D string. So we're going to pick that note, and then we're going to hammer on with the 2nd finger at the 8th fret. So that's the A sharp or B flat. Okay, so we hammer on, and then we pull off. So we're keeping that 1st finger held down on that A all the way through. So, just get that down to begin with. Hammer on, and then pull off. And you want to keep equal volume in each note as you go. So you might have to hammer on pretty hard to keep the volume up, okay? So you don't want, you know, a quiet second note. You want to press down and then pull off with a fair bit of strength, you know, to bring it back to that equal volume. So, okay, and we play it 4 times. And then come back down, and then we move to the 3rd finger. So we're going to be playing the 7th and the 9th fret. So we're just moving each finger in turn. So, same exercise 4 times. Then we move to the 4th finger. So this is 4th finger and the 1st finger. So 7th fret and 10th fret. And you might find that one a little bit tougher because, you know, that pinky can often be weak. So keep good form with it and aim for equal volume. Then back down to the 3rd finger, and then back down to the 2nd finger. So we're just moving up and down. Okay, so the entire thing. Okay, and you can just go round and round. So, here's a few little technical tips there. First of all, be sure to keep that 1st finger in place. Don't let it wiggle around as you're playing the pull-off. So we've got it there. Keep it held nice and firm so that when we play the hammer on, you know, nothing moves. We're just bringing it down, and then for the pull-off, we're just moving that 2nd finger. The 1st finger stays in place. Don't, you know, we don't want it bending out, you know, out of tune. We don't want any wiggles in there. That 1st finger has got to stay there really, really static, okay? Keep a nice firm 1st finger. Okay? In terms of the fretting hand fingers, you want to keep them curled over. So we're going to be hammering on and pulling off with the tips of the fingers there. So, you know, when you do this, the whole action is going to be a lot easier. So, you know, you've got the finger there, that 1st finger, and then you curl that 2nd finger over and bring it down, okay? Then when you pull off, again, it's still curled, okay? You also want to keep your hand parallel to the frets. So, you know, I've got the hand there with these fingers. If you look at the frets there, they are all parallel, as opposed to this. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I'll often play like that, you know, thumb over the top, you know, and we've got the hand coming in at an angle. But what happens is that when you get to the fourth finger, it's a little bit weird. So for consistency with this exercise, we're going to keep everything more parallel, okay? So that's the standard sort of angled way of doing it, you know, coming in at this angle, but we are straight across. So the fingers are pointing up at my head, okay? So parallel with the frets. And if you need a little bit more power in that fourth finger, then you might even want to bring them around a little bit more, so that instead of just being parallel, you're actually angling the fingers up that way, okay? Also, be sure to have a strong flick off the string when you pull off. You're aiming for consistency of volume. So when I play, you know, the hammer on, it's easy to hammer on, you just press down, so you can really get some power in there. But when you're pulling off, you know, the temptation is for it to just slip off lightly. You really want to get a fair bit of volume out of that note that you're pulling off to. So it's very much the same action as picking. You know, so if if you were to put the finger on the D string, you know, the picking hand, and then pick, that's the action that we've got in the pull off on this side. So we've got the finger held down, and then we're kind of picking with it. Okay, so you want a nice strong flick to get the volume in the second note. Lastly, be careful with your muting. So I'm using the underside of, or the back end of that fingertip on the first finger to mute the G string there. So, you know, there's not really going to be any residual noise coming from there. And then I'm using the thumb and the second finger here to hold down the E and the A string. Okay, so all of the strings are held down there apart from the D string, so we're not going to get any, you know, residual kind of open strings. So I'm holding down the E string there with the thumb. I've got the second finger there for the A string, and we're not getting any noise from the open strings. So now, bearing all those tips in mind, let's work the exercise through each string. So we're going to start on the G string and play the same exercise, and then work back to the E string. Now, the reason I started on the D string is because when we play on the G string, we're just pulling off into nowhere. So we don't really have to worry about the higher strings there, like the G string. So starting on that D string, we can spend a little bit more time on the muting, which comes in handy as we're coming across. So let's start on the G string. Okay, so that's the exercise. And like I say, keep it slow. It's more important to play this slow, and it's actually harder on the hands when you play it slow. But when you play it slow, you really have to concentrate on keeping that equal volume as you go. You know, when you play quicker, it's really, really easy to keep the volume up because, you know, there's less time in there. But when you're playing slow, you really have to hammer down to get that volume, okay? So that's the G string, then onto the good old D string. A string, and finally the E string. Okay, and you'll probably find it a little bit trickier when you get down onto the E string just because it's so much fatter. So, you know, you really have to slip those fingers off when you're pulling off, okay? So that's our first exercise. So now let's get a little more adventurous and try a tougher variation. So we're going to move back to the D string again. And we'll begin just as we did before. We're going to be playing the A to the A sharp there, 7th fret to the 8th fret with the first and second finger. Just hammering on, pulling off between them. Then for the second exercise, we're going to keep both the first and the second fingers held down, and then hammer on and pull off between the third and the second finger. So we'll begin with all 3 fingers held down. So 7th fret, 8th fret, and 9th fret. So 1st, 2nd, and 3rd fingers. And we're just going to pick that B there and then just pull off and hammer on between the 3rd and 2nd finger. So this is a lot harder. So we're really working that 3rd finger there. Really hard to keep that volume up, okay? So that's the 2nd exercise, and then for a final exercise, we're going to hold down all the fingers. So 1st, 2nd, and 3rd and 4th fingers on the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th frets, and then we're going to pick that 4th finger, pull off to the 3rd finger and back. So we're just playing a hammer-on and pull off between the 4th and 3rd finger, between the C and the B there. So you'll probably find that quite tough, okay? So if you're finding any problems with that, getting enough, whack down with the 4th finger, then be sure to angle the hand a little bit more and be sure that those fingers are curled, okay? That's why I say start really slow. Look for good form, even if it's that slow. Pick, pull off, get that note. Hammer on, pull off. Hammer on, pull off. Hammer on, pull off, and you'll start to feel, those calluses. You'll start to feel sore fingers a little bit there if your calluses aren't up to it. Okay, and like I say, start slow, and then don't be in a rush to build up the speed. Don't worry about the speed. It's not about speed. It's just building up good form. So really getting a good flick on that pull off. The more flick you get on the pull off, the easier it is to keep that volume consistent. Okay, so we're not going to play like we did before as a long continuous exercise. You just want to focus on each one of these permutations. So, you'll probably find that first one quite easy, but then just spend some time just with that 3rd to 2nd finger. Really hammering hard and getting a nice pull off. Just work round and round on that. It's a pretty mindless exercise. You can sit there watching TV, while you're playing it. It's just a calisthenic exercise. And then, again, 4th finger and 3rd finger. Really working that hand. And then, just as with the previous exercise, you can try on each string. So, from the G string, next finger, and the 4th and 3rd finger. A string, again, try for good form there. It's hard to push that 4th finger down. E string, that big fat string there. 4th finger. You can hear there, it's really tough to get that down, but it's really good exercise for the hand. So, finally, let's try our last exercise using all of the technique tips and skills that you've developed from those permutations. So, all we're going to do with this, we're going to start on the D string again. We're just going to start on that A, 7th fret, and then we're going to hammer on up through each note in turn. So, A sharp, B, C. Okay? That's it to begin with. So, okay, so 1st finger, 2nd finger, 3rd finger, 4th finger. Then, once we get to the top, we just pull off back down through them. So just a very simple chromatic exercise, just working up through each finger and then pulling off back down, which means that once you've got that down, you can just run it round and round. So, start really slow again, looking for good form, keeping clean technique, and trying as hard as you can for equal volume. Now, like I've said before, keeping that equal volume is really, really tough. And, a lot of the time you won't be able to keep up, all the time, with absolute, identical notes all the way. There will be a little bit of a kind of phasing effect that you get. And if you listen to any kind of really great legato players like the Alan Holdsworths of this world or Jeff Berlin on bass, you'll hear, little changes. It's what gives it its style, that it's not always just exactly the same volume all the time. There is a little bit of a phasing kind of effect, but it gives it more of a kind of humanity. So don't worry too much about getting it absolutely identical. But, you want to strive for at least somewhere in that ballpark. So, so just take it really, really slowly, looking for good form. So, With that exercise, we can just repeat it on each string. So, start on the G string. Okay, then to the D string. As you move onto that string, you'll feel it harder to get that the pinky down there. Okay, onto the A string. And the E string. So that's a cool little exercise with some tips for working on your fretting hand and legato skills. It's a pretty mindless calisthenic exercise, like I mentioned earlier, so you can practice in front of the TV, or even if you're having a conversation, if you're one of those antisocial types. So just remember to take it slow and stop if you get any pain in the hand. Any sharp pains, stop and then reevaluate. Have a look at your technique, make sure everything's fine. If you have any problems like that, any pains, sharp pains, cramps, stop and take a break. Okay, so please like this video if it's helped, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. All of the lesson material can be found over at talkingbass.net, so just click on the link in the info below or on the card. So, I'll see you next week.